The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another kick-ass episode of Still Toking with.
It's only 5 o'clock.
There's that fucking voice in my head again. I don't know where that voice keeps coming from, folks, but man, I think I'm going to have to seek psychiatric help for sure.
You might want to.
Yes, with your voice in my head, I will definitely have to. But anyway, yes, it is 5 o'clock. But the reason that we're here at 5 o'clock is because our amazing guest is coming to us from South Africa, and it's midnight there. So we had to play with the times a little bit so that everybody was fresh enough to do the show. Speaking of fresh, the flashy one himself, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Yes, that is I. Happy to be here. Our guest is amazing, and we're going to have an unusually serious episode this time. And I'm not going to be funny up front because I want to take the topic very seriously. So I've got my sparkles, and I'm ready to be funny a little later in the show. So let's get to the show, which means our handsome co-host with the amazing backdrop, Jeff Holman. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all that good stuff to all the people out there that are wonderful. How was that? That came out pretty good, actually.
Yeah, people would think
you know,
you were sincere and everything.
How friggin' long did you have to rehearse that?
I didn't. It just like rolled off my tongue.
Too easy, too easy.
Not
too
going
easy.
there.
Nope.
Yeah, okay. I didn't get anything from that one. That's all right. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. You know, I think that there's a lot of unknowns out there that, you know, and I think people just close doors on shit like this too, for whatever reason. And you know, I'm looking forward to bringing some of this stuff out in the open into light and actually educate myself on things that I'm learning all about this. So let's just get it going. Sarah McCarthy, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thanks
Welcome.
for joining us. Like I said, you know, midnight there. So we appreciate you staying up to come on and shed some light on your new book, which is entitled Blue Butterfly. There's more to it, folks. That's in the description and the show notes up above or down below, but we'll get into all that, as well as the links if you'd like to purchase the book. So, yeah.
I think that the first thing I want to ask you is, how difficult was it to actually write this book?
It was not easy. I'm a first-time writer, and as any first-time writer would possibly realize, it's not an easy task just to set out and write a book. But the survivor story, who I tell in my book, Blue Butterfly, has been a long-time friend of mine for 15 years. And when I heard her story, which diverges sharply from other survivor stories, I knew that it had to be told because it was completely different to what the public perception is around Jeffrey Epstein. So the survivor's name is Juliette Bryant, and I have been a good friend of hers for 15 years. So she endured her trauma in silence for 2 decades until Epstein was arrested and obviously died in August 2019. It was only after he was arrested and his death that obviously the press picked up on the story. I'm not sure why they didn't pick up on the details before that time. And basically what happened is, because her name was on the flight logs, her phone began to ring with reporters wanting to find out more about the story. And it was only then that she actually told anybody, including her mother, what had happened to her. So although I had been her friend for many years, by then it was almost a decade, I had never heard her mention the name Jeffrey Epstein, and I didn't know what she had been through. So yes, she only divulged all of this once he had been arrested and put in prison.
Sarah, you mentioned that your friend's story differs from what other survivors have said. I know what it is, but for our fans and friends who are watching, how does it differ?
Well, when I first spoke to her, I was actually living in London at the time, and this was 2019. So when she first let me know that she was an Epstein victim, she sent me a link to an article explaining, her name was in the article. And it was only when I got back to Cape Town that I met up with her face to face. And this would have been about January, February 2020. And it was during that face-to-face meeting that she told me what had happened to her. And it was actually during her last trip with Epstein. So what people also don't realize is that he didn't keep his victims chained up in a basement. You know, they were free to come and go as they wanted to a certain extent. He was very clever, and he manipulated them with threats and promises. So she was actually sent back to South Africa. And what most people don't realize is, because he threatened her and sort of coerced her, she then felt under his control, and she flew back to the United States to when he wanted her to return. And she did 4 trips in total with him. And the final one was he flew her to New York, and from New York, he then flew her to his ranch. I think maybe most of your viewers would know that he had a ranch in New Mexico called Zorro Ranch. It was a 10,000 acre compound in the middle of the New Mexico desert that was very secretive and very guarded. So she was flown back there on her last trip, and this would have been June 2004. And when she was there, she, for some reason, he didn't sexually abuse her. And for a man of Epstein's appetite, this was something that was unusual for her. She had a terrifying flashback after she got back to South Africa of her waking up naked in a laboratory, and a laboratory type setting, and a female doctor was operating on her without her knowledge and without her consent. And this doctor was doing something around her abdomen. So when she came around, she said she felt like she was paralyzed, possibly muscle relaxants that would be given to her as part of anesthesia. And she couldn't move, and she was terrified, but her eyes opened, and she gained consciousness. And this doctor saw that she was awake and conscious and placated her and tried to calm her down, saying, "You're okay, everything's okay, don't stress." And she went to work on her abdomen, and Juliette said she could feel the pressure of her touch, but no pain. And she was doing something down at her abdomen. So this is why her story differs so sharply from other survivor stories. But I have got some sort of corroborating evidence to suggest that she didn't create this out of thin air. Especially when you look at Epstein's self-professed claims that he wanted to seed the human race with his DNA and his eugenics ambitions, and specifically seeding up to 20 women at a time at Zorro Ranch. When you piece all of these things together, it paints a rather dark picture.
I don't think most people even think it went that deep. I certainly never did. To me, Epstein was just he was a predator. But to bring in, surgeries and all this dark kind of stuff, genetic manipulation kind of stuff, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's disturbing. That's very disturbing.
I've always wondered about this topic, and I've talked about this before. I was molested as a child fairly often, so I know the emotions involved here. Jeffrey Epstein, folks, let me finish the sentence before you start wanting to shoot me, was a very handsome man who could be very charming. I met him once, meaning I was in a room with him and another man. Together, I saw them. And I thought, all right, but halfway across walking towards, the vibe I got, the energy I got was so sleazy and so disgusting. Do you see how I'm retreating? That's how I retreated into the room. And I thought to myself then, how does anyone even get close to this person without immediately wanting to take a shower and run into the night? I wonder, how did he get so many people to cooperate with him? Because, good heavens, the sleaze factor was at 9 million. Sarah, do you have any insight on that?
I'm interested to know which year you met him.
Oh, this is 80s, long time ago.
80s, yeah.
In New York City.
He was already a predator in the 80s. There were allegations against him from as far back as the 80s. And I think his depravity escalated over time, from what I understand from Juliette. But he was very clever. He was very manipulative. And when I read Virginia Giuffre's memoir, bless her soul, I realized that he pushed the girls to do different things. So I think he could see with Virginia Giuffre that he could push her further than Juliette. So Juliette never had to endure what she had to endure. Juliette went to the same school that I went to, which was a private all-girls school. And she came, South Africa is quite a conservative background, whereas Virginia Giuffre had already been trafficked by Ron Eppinger before she met Epstein, and she had already suffered abuse. So when Juliette was recruited by Epstein, it was 1 month later. In fact, pretty much the same month, which would have been September 2002. So he was very clever. He had a game of escalation, and he played it very carefully with Juliette. The first trip he took on, which was to his private Caribbean island, and he managed to take her away from South Africa, away from her family, on the pretext of modeling for Victoria's Secret. So he organized her modeling visa in record time. It was about 2 weeks, which is impressive even for a legitimate modeling agency, which he did not have. Then he paid for her flights. He said, don't worry, we're going to fly you over. All of these expenses will be deducted against your future earnings. So he was very clever, and he took her away from all her lifelines. And she landed in New York and immediately was whisked away to the island, and she didn't know what was happening. She thought, obviously, I'm going for a shoot because we're going to the Caribbean. It's Victoria's Secret. They may want to do a bikini shoot, etc., with me. And as soon as he had her in that situation on the island, he then got in another girl who he obviously knew previously. And they tried the escalation game. Or should I say, he tried the escalation game. I'm not pinning it on the poor other victim who was there. But immediately he said, let's watch a movie, which was apparently a favorite pastime of his in the evenings. And he would put one girl on one side and another girl on the other side. And on that sort of first or second night, she then started performing oral sex in front of Juliette, who was completely shocked because in her mind, sex was only something that was performed, in private between two people. So she got up and ran to her cabana crying. And what was interesting about how Epstein responded, he actually got up and followed her and went into her cabana and apologized to her and said, I'm so sorry. So he was very clever and very manipulative. And he realized he had pushed her too far in the game of escalation too quickly. And this was something he did with a lot of the girls. So he would probably manipulate the situation according to the girl and know how far to push them, if that answers your question in any way.
Oh, beautifully.
Right. Mm.
Do you think in the research you've done, because I've thought about this, Epstein just an evil human or evil human with heavy-duty mental illness?
That's an interesting question.
Not that it excuses anything he did. I just can't imagine a human being doing what he did to so many people for so many years, involving so many other males in it with him.
Yes.
I just, evil does exist, and he's a very good poster boy for it. But I have to wonder just how sick was this man?
I would say incredibly sick. I go into it in my book a little bit. How did he have the stamina and the strength to, he was traveling with 2 or 3 girls every trip he was on. He was taking them each into the bedroom 3 times a day. So that means that he was having sex around 9 times a day. What human has the strength or the stamina to do that and keep wanting to? It defies all logic. and I can't pinpoint it exactly. There was some mental illness that no human can understand, because I don't think even a sex addict has that sort of stamina or desire. Or
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of little blue pills.
Which they didn't have
Right.
way back.
So this
that
was
we know of.
2002. Yeah, this was 2002 to 2004. I've looked at a lot of different theories, and there's somebody's been helping me with the fact checking of the book, and he pointed me to a satyr, which is this sort of like demonic entity that has like no. There's a condition that springs from it called satyrisis or something like that, and one of his friends actually said that he suffers from this condition, satyrisis, which is almost like I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly. It's the first time I've mentioned it.
No, you're pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah. So Stuart Pavar, who was a colleague or an associate of his, he started the New York Academy of Art with Andy Warhol years ago.
Yes.
And met Epstein, and he said he suffered from this condition. And I think Elaine Maxwell said something along the same lines, that he had this medical condition that was diagnosed by a doctor that he needed to have at least 3 orgasms a day. And she couldn't keep up with his sexual demands. And that's why she alleged that she recruited all these young women on his behalf. So maybe it was a medical condition. I don't know, but it seems non-human to me.
You could have just got a blow-up doll and called it a day. I mean,
and can we differentiate a swinger from this kind of behavior? If I may, let's contrast and talk about Hugh Hefner, who I knew, who built this reputation of being a swinger. But Hugh never got involved with underaged people, and never, ever did anything that someone didn't want. There was no control involved. Did he have a lot of sex? Yes. But I'm struggling with this, to use the right words, because in no way do I want to say anything that makes any of this okay, or that the victims are at fault, or anything like that. But we haven't really addressed the underaged part of all of this. In your great research for the book, have you come across anything that speaks to why underaged people and what the psychology of that is? Because I have never, ever understood. I never understood why I was hit on, or why anyone else under the age of 18. I just don't get it.
I think as time progressed, he wanted to get younger and younger women, because he then told victims, who then had to go out and recruit other victims in this Ponzi scheme, as I think a lot of people know about, the younger the better. So Virginia Giuffre, in her memoir, said that he had this idea in his head, and he defended his abuse of these young women. And he said any young woman, or girl, should I say, who has started menstruating was fair game for him, because biologically they could bear children. So women, young girls these days are starting to menstruate, from a very young age. And that was his defense. Now, I've looked at it from a different point of view. Juliette, when she had this horrifying experience in New Mexico, strongly believes that her eggs were being harvested. And if you look at Epstein's defense of why he trafficked all these young women, they were all around the prime age of egg harvesting. So apparently women around the age of 17 to 19 produce the healthiest eggs. So if you're wanting to harvest eggs, these are the women that you would be recruiting and trafficking. So Juliette's theory, yes.
Egg harvesting. I'm sorry. This is just disgusting. Not you, young lady. I'm talking the topic. Yeah. How would that even come into someone's head? Ooh, let's harvest eggs. I mental. It has to be mental illness. No one in their right mind thinks that way.
I think it's a planned agenda. What are they planning to do with the eggs? That's the thing.
What is your opinion? What were they planning to do, Sarah?
I think they were doing a whole host of things, including human cloning. If you look at another sex addict, sex abuser, Peter Nygard, who is a Finnish-Canadian fashion mogul, he was also caught on camera, on a hot mic or a hot camera, soliciting women for their eggs. So he also had his own private island in the Bahamas, and he was caught around a table with some very attractive Caribbean woman. I assume it was in the Caribbean or in the Bahamas, and he was with his business partner, and they were soliciting women for their eggs. And on camera, he said, "I've spent up to $60,000 paying women for their eggs." But he was into stem cell research and longevity. So a lot of these elites in these circles, Epstein circles, Peter Nygard circles, were into longevity. Epstein also, sponsored transhumanism, as a lot of people may know from a New York Times article published about him. So a lot of them are into longevity, immortality, possibly because they don't want to face what's coming to them when this life dies, right? They're going to end up in a not very nice place for a very long time. So, transhumanism perhaps is a way, life extension is perhaps a way out of that. But why would both of them be interested in harvesting eggs? Peter Nygard openly declared on YouTube videos that he was into something called SCNT, which is somatic cell nuclear transfer. And that is the way that Dolly the sheep was cloned back in 1996. It was Epstein's associate and close associate, Bill Clinton, who then banned the use of federal funds for human cloning after Dolly the sheep was cloned. And I didn't tell you this part about Juliette's recruitment. So she was recruited by Epstein when he flew to South Africa, and the date was the 26th of September 2002. We know this because of the flight logs. And Epstein flew into Cape Town with a very high-profile entourage, and that included Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, and some other high-profile individuals. So Juliette she was out in a bar that evening, having, out with some friends. She was a young psychology student, and she was studying psychology at the time, but also modeling part-time. And a lady came up and recruited her, a very attractive African-American model, who came up and said, "Would you like to meet the King of America?" So she said, "That sounds amazing. He can launch her career internationally." And he's here with no other than Bill Clinton, who had just previously been the president of the United States. So, what other legitimacy do you want? And she went along that very evening to meet Bill Clinton and Epstein, and the celebrities were there as well. And she said when she met Bill Clinton, he held onto her hand for a long time while he was speaking to somebody else at the table. And that interaction made her feel quite uncomfortable because he held onto it for a while. And then she was invited to a casting the next day. And while Epstein had actually set up an entire fake casting for her with 3 women who claimed that they were from Karen Models, and she knows who these 3 women are. Some of them are co-conspirators, including Sarah Kellen, who organized his massage schedule. And they all pretended that they were model scouts, looked at her modeling portfolio, said it's amazing, sent her through to meet with Epstein. But while she was having that fake casting in the Cape Grace Hotel in Cape Town here, Bill Clinton walked through the living area and said hi to everyone. So she thought, well, obviously this guy's very well connected, and he can do what he says. He can launch my modeling career internationally. So that brings us sort of full circle back to why she bought into the story. But what he was doing with the eggs, I don't know. Is it cloning? Is it creating his own superior race? I'm not 100% sure.
That can go pretty deep. Genetic modifications and all that kind of stuff. The perfect human. I mean, who knows what these guys are into? That's scary shit right there.
Yeah.
He was sponsoring one scientist in particular, George M. Church, who is a Harvard geneticist. And the New York Times reported on how he sought to identify genes that could be genetically engineered in order to create superior humans. Yeah.
Wow.
Sarah, is it your feeling that because you've mentioned several famous names here?
Yeah.
And again, transparency, I know some of them. Is it your feeling these famous names were abusing underage girls, or were they there just for the yayas and the ha-has and look at us? And I mean, there are people who go along with swinging just because, ooh, this is exciting. And then there are people who were on board with what he was doing, knew what was going on, and were supporting it. What is your take? Because I have no idea. I have been asked this, I can't tell you how many times because of my friendships. What is your opinion?
On the famous people that I've just mentioned, I don't know. There's not one person, to be fair, who has said that Bill Clinton, they were forced to do anything with Bill Clinton. So that I don't know. In fact, Epstein told Juliette that he had to be careful because of his heart.
And just because I'm a good friend, how about Kevin Spacey?
Oh, you're a good friend of his. I've met him.
No, I'm trying to be a good friend. I know Kevin. So do you feel Kevin was just there for the swinging part of it, or that he was actually involved?
Well, I've had my own interactions with Kevin, and it definitely wouldn't be with the female people.
Thank you. Yes, I know, of course.
Right.
Okay. So do you think that Epstein got away with this for so long because he was connected?
Intelligence absolutely was protected at the highest levels. Yes. I'd have an entire chapter about intelligence. And in fact, for my book, I was fortunate enough to speak with Ari Ben-Menashi, who is a former Israeli military. He worked for Amman, not for Mossad.
Right.
So he worked with Robert Maxwell in that capacity. And he gave me quite a bit of information around the fact that Robert Maxwell was quite keen on Epstein for his daughter Ghislaine, and promoted the relationship. And he spoke about how he worked with Robert Maxwell and how Robert Maxwell then encouraged Epstein to be invited into the ongoing arms deals that Israeli intelligence was brokering with Iran at the time during the Iran-Iraq conflict. So there were definitely intelligence connections as far as Israeli intelligence was concerned. This was Amman, not Mossad necessarily. So most people always say Mossad, but I don't know if that was necessarily true. But on another side, when Epstein threatened Juliette, he brought her into his office before he sent her back to South Africa after the first trip. This was in Palm Beach. And Juliette remembers this incident like it was yesterday because it was so threatening. It was the only time he wanted to see her in his office, not in the bedroom or a massage room. And he brought her into the room, and he said, the first thing he said to her is, I work for the CIA and I have your family on a list. So he was threatening her. Then he detailed some other threats, which were basically another girl tried to accuse him of rape. And he said, the police were tipped off and they found drugs in her apartment and she was put in jail for 6 months. So I'm wondering who planted the drugs and who tipped off the police and how she ended up in jail for 6 months. So basically he had ways to threaten the girls to keep them under his control. Then he also offered, the carrot as well as the stick. I can launch a modeling career. Yes, I can still do this for you. I can still pay for your tuition at Juilliard or whatever it may be. So he was very clever. He offered both the carrot and the stick, depending on what he thought was necessary.
Do you think? Go ahead, Jeff.
He obviously was very intelligent, threatening, manipulating, and all of that. To your knowledge, was anybody or any of these women or anybody that tried to stand up against him murdered or taken out in any way?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that question because the first time that Juliette was flown to New York, she was given sort of 20 minutes to then pack a bag for the Caribbean. And at that time, nobody knew she was leaving for the Caribbean. Her mobile phone or her cell phone did not work in the US because they had different systems. Specifically back in that day, there was no way they didn't connect to those cell phone towers. She wasn't able to call her mum and let her know where she was going. The driver was basically waiting outside of 301 East 66th Street, the block that he used for his trafficking operations. And she was taken immediately to Teterboro Airport, where she boarded his Gulfstream 2 and taken to the Caribbean. So there were 3 other passengers. There was Jeffrey and the 2 women that posed as Karen model agents on board, and Juliette. And all 3 were listed on that flight except for Juliette's name. So, which is quite interesting because she believes firmly that had she not complied, she may not be around to tell this tale if she had put up too much of a fight, if things have gone horribly wrong. So, yeah, everybody else was listed on that flight, manifest except for Juliette.
The question I was going to ask, do you think if any of these young ladies for whom my heart breaks suffered from Stockholm syndrome, that although they were being treated terribly this way, that some of them actually developed an emotional tie to him?
Absolutely. I think so. And this explains why a lot of them were going back voluntarily. So a lot of people can't get their heads around this. But I also have another theory. It's not just Stockholm syndrome. I believe that he was manipulating their minds as well as their bodies. And I've done a lot of research into MK-Ultra and mind control. And remember, this stemmed from the CIA back in the day, from the sort of 1960s. Epstein was involved by his own admission to Juliette. He worked for the CIA. And if you look at the new release of documents that have come out online, and you type into those documents, the 20,000 documents that were released just recently now in November, if you type in the word sort of mind or behavior, I think comes up 334 times. If you look at some of those documents, a lot of them reference mind control, and they reference specifically how to manipulate the mind, the pleasure centers, not the pleasure centers, but actually the pleasure signatures in the mind, reward pathways, motivation. Sexes are motivated, and
Interesting.
Hello?
There you are.
Hi there. What was I cut off? Sorry.
Just
every time I get into something they don't want me to talk about, that's what happens.
I say that all the time.
Right?
That's why I said
do.
Interesting.
I say that all the time, depending on the topics, because like we said before, this isn't a standard show. and if this goes dark, it goes dark. But we've had ex-CIA agents on that were cardboard cutouts. We've had literally spies on. And when they start getting into it, it's really weird how the internet just all of a sudden goes, oh, wait a minute, you can't talk about that here.
Especially when you've got fiber and it never happens normally, right? And any other
No.
other Zoom you have, it's all perfect. And then every time you get into something that they don't want you to talk about, the hamster stops spinning that wheel, right?
So you mentioned all the documents that have been released. Do you really believe that they're accurate, or do you think they've been fucked with?
Well, yeah, I think what's interesting is that they're only releasing the documents that they want to. The other thing around them is
typical.
Yeah, the emails. Sometimes you can see who sent the email and that they sent it to Jeffrey Epstein and on what date. The documents, there's no context around them. Why are they there? How do they relate to Epstein? I can say, yes, a lot of them talk about behavior modification, reward pathways, etc. A lot of them talk about actually mind control or brainwashing and CIA. They documents about the CIA and brainwashing. But how do they relate to Epstein? That doesn't make any sense. But there are some documents that do relate to Epstein that are sent to him. And they are specifically from scientists and researchers. And he specifically quoted scientists and researchers who were in they were cognitive psychologists, they were neuroscientists. He hung around a lot of people who were into brain function, or could tell him how the brain functioned. And when you look at some of the emails, it basically corroborates everything I've just been researching and written about. A lot of it, unfortunately, I haven't been able to add into the book at the last minute, but it does completely corroborate things, because they talk about how women are more motivated by certain things compared to men, and specifically around how the reward signatures in the brain, how the brain would light up. One interesting thing that Epstein told Juliette, and actually it was just an interesting anecdote, an entire chapter has spawned from it, and it's a very important chapter. He said to her that when a woman looks at a delicious plate of food, the same part of her brain lights up as when a man looks at an attractive woman. And he was very interested in how the brain functioned. He was very interested in how women's brains functioned. I think he was manipulating the women, or the young women and the girls that he trafficked, and modifying their behavior. Because when you look at a lot of the emails and what was being sent to him, it was all around that and how to bend these women to his will. And I think that is what he was doing. He was also using food as a tool of manipulation and control. He would give them very limited, meager portions. And Juliette said in meal times, they would always have their food would be plated in the evening. And Epstein would never have a plate of food put in front of him. I don't know if he was worried about being poisoned, or maybe the chefs would do something. He would always eat off the other girls' plates. But when I look into it, he was more into psychological manipulation, control, and trying to trigger them in certain ways. So he didn't want them to be friends. He would play them off against each other. And he would steal food, choice bits off their plates. Now, they were only given a small amount to start off with. So these girls were hungry. They were young women who they needed to eat. And it was always very sort of calorie controlled, health food. A lot of it was vegetarian, pescatarian, never meat. And they were always starving afterwards. So both Juliette and Virginia Giuffre would go and raid the kitchen in the evenings. And a lot of the girls, unfortunately, also developed eating disorders. And Juliette was bulimic for 9 years after her time with Epstein. A lot of the girls were anorexic, bulimic. They had issues because he told them, you're getting fat, or he had such high demands on them, to keep their bodies thin and almost prepubescent, to live up to his exacting standards, and that's what made a lot of them, or he would say intentionally critical remarks. Oh, you're getting fat, or he would poke Juliette in the stomach. Now she weighed 100 pounds at the time she was dating him. So, and she's tall, so she weighed nothing. She was skeletal, but he would still tell her that she was getting fat. Yeah,
Unbelievable. I'm just shocked. I mean, I think the percentage of people out there just view this whole Epstein thing as he was a pedophile and sex trafficker. I don't think people understand that it went really, really deep and dark. You know,
Yeah.
because until I started researching this, I didn't even know that.
Right. Well, that was one of the biggest reasons why we thought that it would be a great show, is to bring this to light, you know, because we do have a very large platform. You know, it might get shut down tomorrow now, but that's okay. You know, these are the stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
Sarah, there are two big things
Yes.
that we're not talking about. And I don't know if you have opinions about them or if your research gives you informed opinions about them. But if you mention the large picture of this to most people, the two things I think one would hear is, did Epstein really commit suicide or was he murdered? And we've talked about former elected officials. Are there any current elected officials involved in any of this? Has your research touched on any of this?
Let's answer the first one first around, did Epstein commit suicide? I don't think many people believe that. If they do believe the official narrative, they need to go and do the research themselves. There are too many inconsistencies around there. I know William Barr, who was put in charge, well, he wasn't put in charge of the investigation. He was Attorney General at the time. So therefore, he personally oversaw the Department of Justice's probe into Epstein's suicide. And I can't remember the exact words he used, but it was like a shitstorm of monumental proportions, you know, like everything went wrong. But that's not what happened. The DOJ got hold of apparently raw video footage of the outside of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. But when Wired had a look at it and did the forensics into that video footage, they noticed that the video had been cut. The footage had been cut at around just before midnight on the 9th of August. He was found unresponsive in his cell on the 10th of August, 2019 at 6:30 in the morning. And apparently almost 3 minutes had been cut out of that video footage. Now that's enough time to get into the cell and out and perhaps switch the bodies around. When you look at the fact that Epstein admittedly said he was into human cloning and he was having himself cloned in Mexico, not New Mexico, to one particular victim. This was reported on by a journalist by the name of Leyland Nally. He wrote, he got hold of Epstein's little black book and he called every single number in that black book. And he got hold of one particular victim. I don't know what happened with her, but she went to his townhouse and had a conversation with him, 2-hour conversation. And during that conversation, he told her that he was cloning himself after the Dolly the sheep thing got shut down. And after that, 2 hours, he pounced on her. But she said, oh, I think that whoever was killed was actually his clone and that he's still around. And,
oh, great. Now I got another theory. The guy's still around. Oh, no.
You know what's interesting? This book has actually led me to speak with now 6 survivors, and they all say the same thing. They all think he's still around. They all say, I think he was too powerful. And what's interesting with them is Juliette is quite open-minded, and some of them are not. You know, they don't believe in anything like cloning. They just say, I don't believe he's dead. Call it women's intuition. I don't know what it is, but they all say the same thing. They don't believe he's dead. He was too powerful.
Yeah, when you said bodies were switched, I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sarah,
I mean...
Sarah, can you
Yeah.
answer the second one, or would you rather avoid it?
Who would be implicated in the current administration?
Who might be? Let's keep this in mights and not, because we can't prove anything. So let's not say anything we cannot prove, but your informed opinion about what might be.
I don't know. Howard Lutnick, I think, bought the mansion next door to Epstein's mansion back in the day. That was through Comet Trust, and that sort of went through the Bronfman family, who I think were good friends with Epstein and intricately involved. I don't know whether he was involved. I don't know. I mean, some people, I think it was Whitney Webb, who is very informed, said that Trump didn't want the files to be released not because of him, but because he was protecting somebody in his administration. And she said, let me give you a hint, it's not Howard Lutnick. So it's open to anybody's guess. I don't know. A lot of people have been implicated in the emails. I know Larry Summers isn't looking very good at the moment. He's not, obviously in the current administration, but yeah, there are a lot of politicians that have been implicated.
Politicians, scientists. I mean, this is worldwide too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. There are a lot of scientists, because I'm looking more at it from a scientist angle, because I'm more interested in the sort of medical experimentation that he did on these girls and what he was doing. So, Juliette believes that her ova were harvested. And it's interesting that it's only until very recently I managed to interview another survivor, a very brave woman who confirmed Juliette's intuition and said that she was offered money for her ova by Ghislaine Maxwell. So she met Epstein only once. She was abused by him at that time. And after that, Ghislaine Maxwell kept in contact with her over the phone and offered her increasingly large sums of money in exchange for her ova, until it reached, and she kept saying no, until it reached $1 million. And what's interesting, I asked her, is she also O negative blood type? Because through my research, a lot of these girls had the same blood type. And she said, no, I'm AB negative, which is even more rare than O negative. Mm-hmm. So O negative is about 6 to 7% of the population. AB negative is 0.6% of the population, which is apparently the rarest blood type in the world. Yeah. So these eggs were very valuable to Ghislaine and Epstein for whatever they were, whatever nefarious purposes they were putting them to.
I may be totally off base here, but it's starting to sound to me as this entire Epstein story is about genetic modification and all of this, and that the sex trafficking and the pedophile side of it was a cover, if that sounds weird.
Absolutely. It doesn't sound weird. That's what I've written about in my book, is that all the press have been reporting, look over here, here's all this, salacious sex trafficking stuff that's going on. And that's the exact point that I make in my book. He was much more than a sex trafficker. And the press have deliberately created, an illusion, smoke and mirrors to obscure the truth. And the truth was he was trafficking these girls because he was, one, mind controlling them and getting them to do his bidding, and two, harvesting the ova. That's what I believe.
Scares the shit out of me, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you look at Virginia Giuffre as well. Do we have time quickly so I can bring this
sure.
up?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
In her memoir, I just read a couple of times recently, Virginia Giuffre said that she woke up in a pool of blood in Epstein's Manhattan mansion. She was then rushed to hospital, and the doctor, Epstein, rushed her to hospital, where she was sedated for a couple of days. She wasn't sure what had happened. Epstein told her that she had had a miscarriage, but her medical files mentioned nothing of a miscarriage. So, yeah, she doesn't know what had happened, but she had a scar just above her pubic bone or near her belly button. And a girl in the home said that was consistent with an ectopic pregnancy and laparoscopic surgery. Now, Juliette has a similar scar after New Mexico and after her eggs were being harvested. So why do two Epstein victims have a similar single incision? Yeah.
Gives you something to think about.
So that
does.
I can
A lot of
sleep
stuff I don't want to think about.
so that I can
Right.
sleep tonight, Sarah. The young lady about whom you've written, has she gotten all of the psychological and medical help she needs to move on with her life in a healthy way?
I'm not sure if I can answer that question correctly. I think she still possibly needs some more time to heal from this chapter in her life. Yeah.
But she's
It's
getting
hard,
help.
at the moment, I'm not sure if she is
Gotcha.
getting help. She has in the past. When she got back from New Mexico, she was deeply traumatized. She was hospitalized 10 times. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with her. She had debilitating anxiety and panic attacks. They thought that perhaps she was asthmatic, so they gave her asthma pumps. That didn't help. She believes that he violated her mind as well as her body. And that's why she suffered so severely. By her own admission, she says the sexual abuse was not bad enough. He did something else to me. And this is what I'm hoping to achieve with this book. I know it's a very dark subject matter. I don't want to stress everybody out, but I'm hoping to find out exactly what he did so that these victims can therefore understand the truth and begin to heal. Because Juliette's not the only one that is stressed out. You know, a lot of these victims have really been through the ringer, and especially at the moment with all of this being up in the press again, a lot of them have been unable to speak out because they have been so hurt by what has happened. And I believe that it's not all through sexual abuse, it's from other abuse that he inflicted on them.
Now, do you feel personally that you're putting yourself into a dangerous type of a situation just by bringing this all to light? I mean, there's a lot of powerful people that are supposedly involved in this, you know? I mean, do you feel threatened at all?
I have been.
I figured. That's why I wanted to ask you. Okay. That answers that question.
Yep. Plain and simple, right to the
Plain and
point.
simple.
In my 12 months of being a co-host on this show, I don't think we have ever, the three of us, sat here with these looks on our faces, not knowing what to say next.
I usually have a lot of questions. You gentlemen touched on all of them, but just listening to Sarah talk about the other side of things, sexual abuse and trafficking, you know, but the medical research on humans, I'm completely blown away. I am completely blown away. You know, I mean, personally, they should have just dropped a nuke on his ass.
Not only his, but all the people who were his superiors.
Right.
I mean, he was a puppet. We have to understand that. They were controlling him. And the people that are controlling him or were controlling him are still around. I know that.
Do you think they're still doing this?
I was just going to ask. Do you think that Epstein was nothing more than a puppet for somebody else?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this could still be going on and we don't even know it.
Yeah, they just, you know,
that's
like
horrifying.
Like I said before, we've had some CIA agents and we've had some spies on that have told us straight out things that would blow your mind.
Mhm.
And I think this topic fits that category very well.
Right.
Because you get rid of one puppet because they got caught, there's another puppet over here. And it just continues. They just pick up, move base, oh, it's an empty building now.
Sure. That's why everybody needs to speak out. And that's why this needs to be brought to light. And also, why has Zorro Ranch in New Mexico never been raided by the FBI? All these other properties were, but Zorro Ranch, which potentially has underground facilities, I go into that in my book and talk about all the different possibilities that, there were underground plans. Another survivor by the name of Maria Farmer said that Epstein told her. So she was one of the first to raise allegations against him in 1996. She worked for him at the time, and he tried to abuse her, and he did manage to abuse her younger sister, Annie Farmer, and at Zorro Ranch. And she says that Epstein told her that he had underground rooms and tunnels beneath all his properties. And she saw some of these rooms underneath Zorro Ranch, or potentially also the his New York mansion. And she said why anybody needs so many computers in one room is beyond her, that he had these massive rooms full of computers. So, if he was a financier, what was he doing with all these computers in these rooms? And there's a lot of evidence that points to underground facilities, specifically in New Mexico. And you look where his ranch was positioned, there's a Scientology ranch not too far away. There are all these other underground, evidence of deep underground military bases. There's two YouTubers who wanted to buy the ranch, but if they went to go and view it, they had to sign an NDA, which means that they wouldn't have been able to produce their documentary. And the documentary that they produced sort of points to underground facilities. They got quite a lot of evidence. Epstein's also sat on the board of a company called Life Shield Bunkers, and they phoned somebody who worked at the company and spoke to them about it. And this company produces underground bunkers. And, you can go and look at their website. They show all these underground levels for future catastrophes, etc. But Juliette would have woken up somewhere that would have had a laboratory type setting, and that I firmly believe is underneath Zorro Ranch, and why it has never been raided to this day.
You're a brave lady, Sarah.
Right.
And very intelligent. That you have so many dates and pieces of information right off the top of your head is amazing.
Well, thank you. I haven't given you many. I've kept it quite high level and light this evening. I normally go into the dates more, but it's all late and my brain's not working to the best of its ability.
Sarah, your brain has been working just fine.
Yep.
Just fine.
If people want to know more about Juliette's story, Sarah's book, just check the show notes up above, down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. The links are there for you to purchase this book.
Now, before they take it off.
I don't think they can. It's produced by an independent.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Which would be Trine Day.
Yeah.
So
very brave publishers published a lot of books of a similar genre.
Chris is a very, very brave gentleman.
Yes.
So,
do you know Chris?
We've had him on the show.
Oh, you have? Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a good guy. He's one of a few, isn't he?
Yeah, but the stories that he's bringing to light, such as yours and a few others that we've interviewed, he's very brave.
Yeah, he is.
Very brave.
He's a good guy.
I think all four of us have been very brave today.
Well, yeah.
I agree.
They can't get me. I'm in space. But we are over time. So, Mr. Holman, Any last questions for this amazing guest?
I believe it. Are you still riding horses?
I would like to be riding horses more, but I've been really putting the final touches on the manuscript, and it's all good to go now. So let's hope I get back in the saddle soon. I've got a friend who has polo ponies that have just come off the polo field, and they're back in the stable yard, and hopefully I can go and ride on the beach sometime soon.
Everybody needs to be in their happy place every once in a while.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
that is my happy place.
Yes.
I hope to be back there very, very soon.
Mr. Mark, any last questions?
Yes, Ms. McCarthy. Is this the first in a series of books like this, or is this a one-off?
Let's see how this one goes. I think the next one will be definitely less contentious if I do write.
But do you have an idea for one already?
Not at this stage, no. Yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah. Listen, I'm hoping that this book will bring more to light. It already has. Another interview led me down the path to the survivor who corroborated Juliette's account. Maybe there will be more survivors that come out, and not only survivors. Epstein did not run this operation alone. There are people out there that know things.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And
with that being said, go ahead.
Disclosure is coming soon.
Yep. With that being said, because you said survivors and things like that, if there are survivors out there that want to come forward and maybe talk to you, how can they get a hold of you on social medias?
They can go to McCarthy Truth on X. Otherwise, they can get hold of Chris from Trine Day, and he can always forward me any messages.
So there you go, folks. Mr. Jeffrey Mark, how can people get a hold of you?
Jeffrey Mark, is it spelled right here on my video? Or if you're listening to us, it's GeoffreyMark. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as Jeffrey Mark Showbiz. You can tune into my other shows on these platforms. I'm feeling so serious. I host 2 music shows. Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella. Jeffrey Mark Plays Merman. All the same platforms. Please to enjoy. I will be, since we're live, I'll be on CNN's morning show on Friday in the 9 o'clock East Coast hour talking about Rob Reiner. And this was quite an experience. Thank you.
I'm speechless. No,
For
go
once.
to stilltoken.com. You'll find all our stuff there. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Talking with the Dead. And Sarah, I don't think I've ever, after 6 years of doing this, I have never gone down a rabbit hole so far.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's unbelievable. And I'm big on researching that kind of stuff, but I never expected that such darkness to what you just brought to light. How's that?
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. I've got a lot of research to do and a book to read, apparently.
There's a lot more in the book that I don't go in, I haven't gone into, an hour is not enough time. I need 10 hours to touch on all the topics.
Got to read the book.
Well, we want to give people just the tip of the book so that they purchase the book and they can actually read it for themselves.
Right.
Again, as Jeff said, stilltoking.com, and you can find everything you want to know about us, our appearances, the show. All these are cataloged there and on YouTube and multiple other places. We want to thank Sarah for taking time out of her sleep because it is now about 1 a.m. there. So we don't want to keep her too long. To all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can come up here and do what we do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. No, actually,
Well-
we won't see you next week. It's Christmas. So
Is it
everybody
Christmas?
have an amazing Christmas. But we will be live on New Year's Eve. If you'd
Yes.
like to tune in, we're doing a 2.5-hour special with, I think, 7 or 8 of our past guests. What are they up to now?
And
Check
I
the
might
show
even
notes.
sing a song or two.
Maybe we'll see if you're a good boy.
I'm a good boy, Daddy.
Make sure you check the show notes up above or down below to find out more information on Sarah and her book. So, like I said, be safe. We'll see you next week.
Have a
We're
happy.
outta here.
Happy Christmas.
Come on.